This wonderfully delightful hunk of junk is Claudia. Claudia is a 2002 Audi A6 Avant, aka the long version, aka wagon, aka estate. She's got the famous Quattro badge on her right here, and she's also a 6-speed manual, which is absolutely delightful if you ask me. Now the story with this car is that I picked her up off of eBay, £500, sight unseen, buy it now. And the description for this car basically just said spares and repairs. That's all I knew about this car when I first bought it. Let's just do the world's quickest recap. The headlights were cloudy as you like, and that's never going to pass the inspection, so I just bought one of those headlight restorer kits, did a bit of a buff, and they came back to life. The rust on the front wings was crazy, and if you got too close you could actually taste it. In case you hadn't noticed, this is a very blue car. Blue seats, blue carpet, blue dashboard, blue steering wheel. It's got about 125,000 miles on it, and as I very quickly found out, this car hasn't had a service in 6 years, and I don't think the timing has ever been done on here, so we're going to have to fit a new timing kit. Claudia's got the 2.5 litre diesel V6 engine, which puts out about 180 brake horsepower. Although when it came to me, it felt like it had about 5 brake horsepower, and I managed to trace that fault back to a faulty MAF sensor, which you can see me changing out here. I did only change it out for a really cheap one, but it certainly seemed to fix the problem, took us back to full power, which made me very happy. I did some jiggery pokery with a vacuum device and managed to work out that the EGR valve on this has basically died, and the CV boot on the passenger side has died. I did all of this work thinking that I'd fixed all of the issues and that I'd found myself a £500 bargain. However, at 2000 RPM it was starting to make the most horrendous noise. When you get to about 2000 RPM, oh, what's that? I did a load of research online, and it turns out that these cars are famous for chewing through their own cams. So I popped off the rocker covers and just inspected to see how bad they were. I did put this out to the community before, and the general consensus is that these cams are actually completely fine, and I had a bit of an inspection and the rocker fingers also look good, so I don't think that's the problem. Now my plans for this car basically revolve around making it road legal again. I want to actually use this as a daily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her a really good service, see if there's anything else in there that needs to be done before we take her for an MOT. And if you're outside of the UK, an MOT is basically the name of our annual government roadworthiness inspection. This shouldn't be too difficult of a job, which is great because I'm basically buying these cheap, horrible, lovely, delightful, broken cars as a way to teach myself mechanics here on YouTube. So let's just get into this. Okay, so in terms of that noise that we're hearing, I got some amazing feedback in the comments. People were pointing out that it's probably not these rocker fingers. People were pointing out that firstly, these cams are slightly worn, but they're not actually too bad. Like, you can get way worse, and people have seen this engine with way worse. If it was anything in this valve train, and if it was the rocker fingers, then you'd hear it all the time. You wouldn't just kind of hear it snap on and off kind of, you know, at 2000 RPM. That's the general consensus. And so firstly, that means that I'm now not going to remove these cams. So what could be making the noise? People are saying, so engine mounts, could be the engine mounts. These have kind of hydraulic, electro-hydraulic engine mounts that they get harder as you corner. It's some kind of wizardry, and they leak, and you can see there's a load of fluid coming out of that one. So both the engine mounts are shot, and we were getting the error codes anyway on the computer. Another thing that people were saying was that people were saying it could be the throttle body. So with this actuator here, if you listen, and then the other thing that we're thinking is that it could be something like a worn-out tensioner as part of the, part of the timing gubbins in here. Oh wow! Oh, hang on a minute. surely it's that. Surely it's that. That's got to be a tensioner, isn't it? Or an idler pulley or something. Also, you should be able to see the condition of that belt. It is not good. So I'm very glad now that we've pulled all of this off, and I've got a belt kit coming. That's bad though. Look at that. Wow, I can pull that whole thing off. Look, I've just pulled the belt off. The next thing that I really want to nip in the bud quickly is the removal of this fan. I had lots and lots of comments telling me that basically you're an idiot and you're actually trying to remove this fan by turning the nuts the wrong way. Almost everyone in the comments is saying, no, it's actually a left-hand thread and it's the reverse basically, so you have to undo it to the right. But right here I've got the official Audi documentation, and right there you can see that that front spanner is being told to turn anti-clockwise. And the reason this goes anti-clockwise is because if you just look at the fan orientation, this fan does not spin clockwise. This fan spins anti-clockwise, and so the nut on the front is a regular thread because that goes the opposite direction to the fan travel. Now I still can't get it off. It is so seized on there, it is unbelievable. So I still think I'm going to have to cut this off. I don't have a reciprocating saw or anything like that. It's too much money. I'm not going to spend that sort of money now. I've got lots and lots of tools and equipment I still have to buy. I only started doing this in January this year and I've spent thousands of pounds on tools. I don't understand how this car was even running. What on earth has gone on here? So, first thing, this belt here, so this is the one that you saw me fiddling with a minute ago on the alternator. Comes around there, down here. But I don't think it's supposed to go down there. I think it's supposed to go over the top of this pulley around there, because if you look here, that whole belt is stuck down there like that. So that's what it's like. That probably explains why the battery was going flat, because the alternator wasn't working. I think this tensioner has failed. Well, I don't think. This tensioner has failed, and it's driven this pulley up into this cover, and that whole pulley is actually completely wonky. So, I mean, I'm gonna have to pull all this apart to see quite how much damage has been done in there, but it's gonna need a whole new tensioner assembly, because, well, look, there's a massive gouge down there as well. Look at that, look, it's torn all the threads off there, it's cut into it. You can see in there a bit better now. Like, obviously you can't spin that by hand. And to think that I fixed the MAF sensor and I was like, oh, the car's driving normally now. That must have been the only thing that was wrong with this, and that's why I picked up this £500 Audi for so cheap. Nope. So I've taken the dampener pulley off and obviously a couple of the belts, and I think I can see straight away what the cause of the problem is. And it looks very much like there's a snapped bolt in there. Well, I just kicked that bolt to the side, and I reckon that this snapped bolt was that there. Okay, update. I've managed to pull off this auxiliary belt tensioner. So this is the bit that's broken. That sits up there like that, and that went on there, where you can still see there's a broken bolt in there, inside this bushing. This needs replacing. Now what I've done is I've just googled the part number, and the very first thing that comes up when you google the part number is aux belt tensioner thingy repair kits, and there's loads of them. So I think this is a very common thing on these engines where this goes, because as part of the repair kit you get a whole new bushing, you get all these bits, new bolts. This bracket itself looks okay. There's no cracks or anything that I can see in it, so I think the damage has been isolated just to this bracket. Right, I got this bracket off, but I had a fight doing it. And that always happens when you start pulling a car apart. You start finding other bits and bobs. So you can see here that this oil hose in there is actually all ripped to shreds and looks like it's just been leaking for a long time. But one of the good things about having taken that whole bracket out is that I can now replace that engine mount incredibly easy. Now I did just off camera, because I can now get to this bolt here for the fan. You can get in there now properly, and so I gave it my absolute all with these spanners. I'm not trying to play a game of I told you so or anything like that. I'm leaving this here for the next person. If you've got one of these cars, this isn't a reverse thread. This is a regular right hand thread, and it unscrews anti-clockwise. That is indeed coming off. It is still on there tight though. Look at that. Look. Oh. Still takes an effort to come off. So I'm just thinking about what to do next, and I think the best thing to do is to try and start cleaning some of this carbon out of the engine. So as you can see, there's a massive amount of carbon build up on the inside of the inlet manifold, on the throttle body, the inlet thing that was coming down here, and you see we've had some kind of massive oil leak as well. It also looks like, I think it's hard to see, but something was nesting in here, because there's all kind of like broken shells all gathered around, and I think it looks like there's some poo in there. So I'm wondering if when this car was parked up, a little mousy mouse got in there and started to make a bit of a nest. Oh wow. Wow. Right, so that's the inlet manifold off, one of the inlet manifolds off the top. Yeah, but that is carboned up like you cannot imagine. I mean, look at that. That's absolutely crazy. Wow. I can see it all down here as well in the actual cylinder head. This is going to take a lot of time and a lot of elbow grease. In huge, thick, horrible globules. That carbon clean has just taken me 6 hours, and I'm still not 100% finished. So you can see now that I've got in all of these inlet ports on this side, all of them on that side, and it's a lot cleaner. Now it's not 100%, you know, it's probably about 90%, which is good for me, and it is so unbelievably messy. This stuff, it's sludge and it gets everywhere. And here are the inlet manifold pieces. So these came out quite well. See, you should be able to see in there. Again, it's not 100%, but you know, I've probably gained about 80 horsepower back from doing all of this. Cleaned in there as best you can. I think now, whilst I've got such incredible access to the engine mounts, I think it makes sense to change both of those engine mounts there. There we go, 2 brand new engine mounts in at the front there. I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to replace this gammy hose in here. This is a coolant hose. This feeds the oil cooler, because it's just awful. I can see it. I'll pull it off in a second, show you. And here's my replacement coolant hose. I had to get this directly from Audi, literally the only place you could get it. I mean, I would get this hose off if I could actually get to it. Come on, just come on, just let me get in there, because if I can get in there, then I mean, there is no other way to do that. Who put that on like that? How did you? That went on there before this engine went in the car. It's the only way that could have happened. Wait, are you hammering a hose off? You better believe it. Ta-da! There we go. That is what I was dealing with. God, that hose is absolutely trashed. I can't believe it wasn't actually leaking everywhere. That must have been about a day or two away from going. Okay, nice shiny new piece of hose in there. You can't really see it, but I gave it a bit of a clean up in there as well on a couple of pipes and the side of the engine. But it would appear my timing kit has been lost in the post, which is incredibly irritating. So I've come to a bit of a hard stop here. So I think what I'm going to do now is I think we should probably see to these brakes. Now the calipers on both sides are actually sticking, and when you drive this car there's almost no brakes. I haven't driven it far, obviously, just up and down my driveway, but there are no brakes whatsoever. You can get a rebuild kit, obviously, but for all the hassle it's worth. You know, I don't have things like a workbench, I don't have lots of tools still, you know, so actually just rebuilding a caliper is it's just way more hassle than it's worth for me. So I've actually gone and bought two for this side and the other side, two replacement calipers, and then we're also gonna do discs and pads. Hopefully, I'm just really hoping that the actual brake hose is okay, and when I try pulling this thing out of the caliper, it actually comes out and I don't find myself in a situation like I was when we did the Mini. You had to replace the brake lines because I royally screwed up the connections up here. Now that looks also in awful condition like the Mini did, so hopefully I'm not going to have to replace this brake line at all, and it will just come out of the caliper really nicely. Right, so I'm learning my lesson from when I did this on the Mini. I rounded the nut on the brake line. Now I could have sworn that I bought myself another 11mm flare end flare nut wrench thing, because this Teng one I've got is rubbish and it's already looking like it's going to be rubbish, so I'm going to have to use it. I am going hard with the penetrant, and I've also got a hell of a load of heat this time. No, I think I'm going to have to just buy a new one of these. Buy. All I'm doing is buying tools. It's costing me the world. No, I'm going to round it straight away. Come on, don't round. Oh, God's sake. Okay, it's official. This Teng spanner, rubbish, absolutely rubbish. I mean, the problem is that these nuts in here, they get like really seized, and the actual nut itself is really soft, and then these are just ever so slightly imprecise. It's just a recipe for just rounding it immediately off. Okay. Hello, baby. You alright? Yeah, you? Yeah. Well, just trying to get this nut off, but
another one.
Another one? That's all I ever do. Get stuck nuts off. I've just completely rounded this.
Oh, you joking?
No, this is like the Mini all over again. What? Why are you laughing? It's not funny. Meg, move.
Meg, move out of the road.
Meg, move. So I have now officially rounded that nut off in there. I gave it heat, I gave it penetrant, I gave it some love. I'm just gonna do what I did with the Mini. I'm gonna cut it off there. I'm gonna cut it off there, use the bolt extractors, take those out, and then just simply fit a new hose. Okay, so how the hell do you use this? That must screw into there for some reason or another. So then you put your pipe in there, yeah? Right, and then apparently you just reverse this, spin this, and then the flare should work. Let's see what's happened. Well, what do you know? I've only gone and flared the pipe. Ha! First time. Come on. Please. Right, so that's everything with the brakes done, at least on the front. All I did was I cut it right near the flare, and then I've simply got a new union and flared the pipe, and I'm quite pleased with my effort actually. This is the first time I've ever flared any pipe, and it seemed to go quite well without any fuss whatsoever. And just to give you an idea of how bad these old front calipers were, you can see all of the boot there just coming apart, just disintegrating. So it would have needed a massive rebuild anyway with a kit that, but you know, I mean, rebuilding this versus just buying new calipers, the price was remarkably close. One of the things that really needed doing was the fact that the outer thinger, the the CV joint boot on this front passenger side was torn, and there was a load of grease coming out of it. So I was just going to replace the boot. However, I did cut the old boot off, and then I gave the CV joint a, you know, and it was just going, so too much dirt clearly had just gotten in there, and who knows what sort of damage that's causing. So I'm actually going to go and just replace the whole joint. I've got myself a CV joint kit with a new CV joint in there. I'm just going to fit that. Now I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's because I'm a noob idiot. I actually went to all of the effort of getting under the car, attaching about 7 meters worth of extensions to my ratchet to get the whole drive shaft out. So I got in there on the inner side, and so I have actually pulled the whole drive shaft out. Nearly killed myself in the process, only to sit here, look at it and think, well, why did I pull the whole thing off? I only needed to get to this end, which you can do with that still on the car. I mean, I'm halfway through fitting this new CV joint, just greased it all up. Thought you might find this slightly amusing. I dropped it in the dirt. Brand new grease. Okay, that is the drive shaft back in. We've got the new CV joint on there. It was a bit of a fight. I mean, anything like this where you have to lay down on the floor, scoot yourself under, and then try and get all of the extension bars all the way in there to do the drive shaft. Any kind of job like this, you know, with this much room, it's always just going to be a fight. But I got it done, which is the most important thing. I mean, yeah, I mean, I got half of the packet of grease all over me, but you know, here's what it is. We're now moving on to the bit that, frankly, I'm dreading, the timing. So what I've gone and done is spent way too much money on a Superfly Gates timing kit. This is kind of like the deluxe, super deluxe Billy Bibb version. You've got a water pump in there, there's a thermostat. Got two new belts, so you got the main actual timing belt, and then you get another one of these mini belts for the fuel pump, all the hardware, a load of thingamajigs, you know, the pulleys, and I've also gone and bought, you know, extra pulleys for all of that gubbins that you saw down here that had snapped, which had caused that whole issue. So I've got all the components there. What I've also got is I've got some instructions that appear to actually be missing half the steps, and I've found a video on YouTube which is in German, a language I do not speak, kind of covering how to do this. So between half the instructions and a video in a different language, I'm hoping to get this done. This is either going to be really good or really good, you know, just, oh, why did I even start this? So that, I hope, is the timing job fully complete. So one of two things is either going to happen here. I'm going to start the engine and I've got the timing absolutely bang on. I did all of the steps required and the engine is going to run beautifully with all of its new equipment. Or maybe, most likely, I'm going to turn the engine on, the timing's going to be out, something slipped out of time somewhere, and I'm going to have some kind of catastrophic engine failure. So it's quite a complex job, I won't lie to you doing this. There's about 79 different belts on here, but so we've got a brand new timing belt on, and then behind this cover there's a load of pulleys in there. I renewed all of the pulleys behind this cover for the main timing. You've got a new belt up here and a new tensioner there for the fuel injection pump. We've got, that's not new, that's for the fan. These aren't new, they don't need to be new. Got a new tensioner here. We've got a new tensioner there. That one isn't new, that one looked fine, so I didn't even bother replacing it. This is all of the part that broke off, so my repair kit included this whole new kind of assembly there. There's a new bushing that goes all the way through and it connects. You can see the tensioner on the dampener and the spring, and you can see that this pulley is now sitting away from that cover how it should be. Like I said, that's a brand new pulley, and this is also a brand new belt, this drive belt here, that's brand spanking. I didn't renew the AC belt because I forgot, frankly, I forgot to buy one. So, and it's, you know, it's only the AC, so if it does break, it's not going to be the end of the world, and it'll be a fairly quick fix. So I started off cleaning the rocker covers and then installing new gaskets, and pretty much just kept going. So you can see in there, lovely new shiny rocker covers. Did put new gaskets on there, scraped the old sealant away, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I just kept going. So I did the same on the other side. I've refitted the fuel return lines out of the injectors with new crush washers in there, or fuel washers, or whatever washers, thingamajigger washers. I have refitted the turbo shield, the heat shield. I fitted a brand spanking new EGR valve because the old one was on its way out. What else have I done? I've obviously then refitted all of the pipe work, the front intake manifold, everything's torqued down lovely. The coolant bottle is now back in place properly, and I went ahead and also just put the engine cover back on. I've fitted a brand spanking new engine mount there. This is the old one, and it's just like a really old stale piece of like Victoria sponge cake. I mean, if you look at the two look at the two side by side. And so this is a really important mount to replace, because you see now that I've actually replaced the two main engine mounts in there. Well, one of the things that actually breaks those engine mounts is, believe it or not, this, from what I've researched online. And so when this starts going like this, you can see it's literally just crumbling away in my hands. It basically offers zero support, it doesn't do anything. And so when the whole front clip is on here, it means that the engine can actually move back and forth way more than normal, and that is what breaks the two main engine mounts. There's too much engine movement. Also gone ahead and fitted a new air filter, and there's already a piece of dirt on it. Get out of there, you little... So that's a new thingy. That's a nice new Bosch one. The old one wasn't too bad, you know, it's not the nicest, but yeah. So that's all nice and replaced. So she's starting really to come back together now, and I'm quite happy with this progress. So I think what I need to do next is I'm going to have to sort this fan out, because obviously I cut the old fan off. So this is the old one right here. And then you can see where I've just gone straight through there. So I've cut that off. So that's actually like the clutch part. Now, what I've gone and done, I think I just got stung by a wasp. You absolute little piece of horrible little flying right on my arm. Ow. Ah, evil little bugger. So I bought a new centre part right there off of eBay. Obviously that's second hand. it was all going so well right up until this point. So basically I've bought the wrong fan clutch. I don't know how I've done it, but I have done it. This is the wrong one. It's way too small. I even checked the part numbers. That's so irritating. I did a little bit of digging basically. This one that I bought off eBay, I thought was right because it was listed incorrectly. It was listed as the one that I thought I needed, and is just completely wrong. So that's that seller that's screwed up. Not so much me, but I suppose makes it just a little bit better. And it turns out you can actually buy brand new versions of that. Apparently the one I need. I did get the absolute cheapest I could find, Chinese special, for £30. That's not going to be here now for 3 days. So it is a new day. Let's like address these rusty wings. Okay, so these things are an absolute mess. They're just completely rotten. Everywhere here that you see gaffer tape, it's just hiding loads and loads of rust. This side is the better side of the two. Scoot round to the other side. You can see the hole on this side is much larger. It kind of encompasses half the wing, and so yeah, obviously I'm not going to repair these wings. I've actually gone ahead and bought some new wings, and when I say new wings I actually do mean brand spanking new wings for the exact same price as a second-hand wing in this colour. You can for some reason buy a pattern wing painted but brand spanking new. I don't know why it ended up the same price, but well, probably because they don't fit. So here's the new wing. Now yeah, it doesn't match. I don't know how well you can actually see this on camera, but yeah, I mean look, you can see it was the same colour once, but it's just, that old paint is just dull and tired and faded. This is a Trez lovely colour. It's so nice. It's a very deep navy. It's really nice. Come on. Oh yes. Oh my god. To say that I fought with that would be understatement of the century. It is off though, only one of them, passenger side. That took an age. The problem is, right, is because, well, obviously you've seen all of this rust here. Well, all of this rust just gets absolutely everywhere. So look at these bolts I'm trying to remove. So there's absolutely nowhere to put the tool inside. It's so corroded you can't put anything in there, a screwdriver, a Torx. And you can see how small the head is, and that's because I was using bolt removers to try and grip onto it and take them out. But these nuts, the heads are so corroded that the second you put the bolt removers on them, the head they were just disintegrating into nothing. So yeah, there's one that I struggled with. There's another. You can just see how messed up they all are. And then, you know, you got to get down here under this plastic trim, and you know, I'd put the axle stand covering the bolt so I couldn't move this, and then there's another thing in there that you couldn't get. You saw me drilling it out, and but this is now the wing off on the driver's side, and as you can see, the assortment of tools that was required to actually get this wing off is not probably what you would call delicate. It was an absolute nightmare. The main problem with these two bolts down here that hold the bottom of the wing in, I mean, just take a look at what I've had to do to these bolts to get them out. Oh, it was absolutely horrendous. It was truly horrendous. I bought a Dremel. Those things are fantastic for getting in these tight gaps. Okay, so what I've done here is I just painted on some rust converter. So this is what I'm using, this Tetraseal wax oil rust proofing. This stuff is literally, yeah, it's like a oily wax, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint this kind of on the inner arches and stuff using a brush. I know there's a load here going to be sitting there thinking, you're supposed to spray it on, you're supposed to, yeah, alright, but it's quite windy today, and you know, if I start spraying here, one gust of wind, all over my neighbour's car. So I'm just going to brush this on all the parts where there's just been rust before, and kind of all up here in the top, in the wing, just all the bits that you're never going to see the light of day again for a long time. Just give it some level of protection. It's not going to make any massive difference, but it's nice to know that it's been done still. Ta-da! That is the brand new pattern wing that I've just pulled out of that box, fitted on, and a plane, some kind of Spitfire looking thing, I don't know. So I haven't fitted it properly, it's only being held in there, you know, really loosely, just with one screw, but the fitment, it looks, oh, I mean, it fits. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to bring it out on camera very well, but I can tell you right now, there is a mismatch in colours, but that looks way better than that. Yep. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call rust. Okay, so it's a couple of days later again, and I have sorted out the rear brakes, but I did run into a bit of a problem. So basically we've gone from this to this lovely thing here, Pagid discs and pads, but also you're probably going to notice that the caliper is new. And so here is the Audi caliper that was on it. This piston does not screw back into this caliper for love nor money. And I mean, you can probably see there that the boot there is van this side, it's completely torn, it's come out of its place, and in there I can't really, so it's like in there loads of rust and corrosion and dirt. All of this is just mud and filth, and I mean, you can see everything that's come off. Look, as I've just been doing this on the floor, it's crazy. That it's completely seized, absolutely 100% completely seized. So I mean, it's the same story as the front. So I was looking at buying a rebuild kit. A rebuild kit is about the same price as Chinese calipers. Look, I know they're Chinese calipers, and it is what it is. This is what we're working with. I just need this done as quickly as possible, and I know this is not economically viable, but buying brand new OE calipers from Audi, you know, is kind of pushing it a bit, especially if I don't know if this car will ever even get through its inspection. Anyway, I've now got, well, basically rebuilt the entire brake system on the back, same for the other side. Okay, all of the brakes are now bled. There was absolutely no dramas with any of that, which makes a nice change. Next up is I'm going to replace the fuel filter, but I also need to bleed the fuel system. I have got a new Bosch filter that goes here, and I know there's a few of you saying now, hang on a minute, wait, you've got Bosch filter, Bosch air filter, fuel filter, I've got a nice new cabin filter, I've got, you know, some lovely new Bosch bits, I've got some new Bosch glow plugs to go in, but you're putting kind of like £2 Chinese brake calipers on every corner of your car. Yes. Yes. Okay, so I've got my instructions, and this should be really quite simple. We should start with pulling this out. We should start with pulling this out. Start with pulling this out. So that's now installed. So now what I need to do is bleed the fuel system. And bleeding the fuel system isn't something that you need to do when you install a new fuel filter. The reason I'm doing it is because when I had the rocker covers off, you have to remove these fuel lines here, and they go right down there into the you can see them there, into the high pressure fuel pump. So you know there's going to be air in the pump for sure. I did read online that you can just simply use a vacuum pump, which I've already got. Plugs in here to this return line down here on the fuel line, and apparently you can just suck a load of fuel out. It should suck a load of air out. Hopefully that works, and then that's the fuel system bled. Okay, I don't want to jinx it, but it looks to have worked. It pulled out loads and loads and loads of air, and now really the only thing to do is to fill dear Claudia up with coolant. Look, I'm not going to lie to you, I have been searching for other jobs to do, because I know that as soon as I've done this, I'm going to start the engine, and it's just filling me completely with dread. Right, so I just went around kind of checking all of the connections, just everything again, you know, all of the injector pipes, the fuel there. I should probably get that out of the way now I've noticed that. And it's a good job that I did, because I'd actually forgotten to put the clip on this lower intercooler hose, so that's good. So I think everything is buttoned up now. Okay, here goes. Come on, Claudia, please don't break. Oh my god, I don't want to turn the key. Okay, cool. Well, it turned over and it didn't sound like there was any damage. But I think the battery now needs charging, so fantastic. Okay, the battery is now somewhat charged. Take two. Come on, Claudia. Go on. Nada. It's got to be because of the fuel, surely. Okay, so I've tried rebleeding it again. If this doesn't work, I'm probably going to need to buy a proper tool, because I don't think a vacuum pump's the right tool to be bleeding something with, because if you think about it, once you pull the air out, there's nowhere for it to go apart from back into the fuel system when you let the pressure off. So maybe I need to buy a proper tool. Maybe I'm not bleeding it correctly. And now also the battery won't charge above 75%. So, well, at least the charger I've got won't charge it above 75%. Although it is one of those nice no-co ones. Okay, it's now the next day. So I was just went to bed last night. You know how when you get into bed you start thinking about absolutely everything that's wrong with your car. I started doing that, and I thought, well, I think I know how to stop all of this air going back into the system once I've pulled it out with the vacuum pump. And the obvious answer is obviously to just pump the fuel out into the container, and then before you empty the container, clamp the line off like that, so that when you release the pressure from, you know, the gun or the cap, the air doesn't shoot back down the hose, because obviously it can't get down there. It's just so obvious, isn't it? So I've now done that, and I've now bled this a few times. Okay, come on then, Claudia, let's just get going. Ready? Go. Right, I've done some more farting about, so let's just try cranking it a little bit again. It definitely hasn't fixed anything, but you know, worth a shot. Yes! I honestly didn't think that was going to start. Yes! 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 Oh my god, I genuinely didn't think that was going to start. Oh, right, what's the deal? We got smoke. I can smell a lot of fumes, but I think that's just because I'm backed up right against this wall, so it's all just wafting back in my direction. But yeah, I mean, there's no air bubbles now that I can see in the hose. Oh, right, it's the next day again. I probably don't have to do the glow plugs, but I am. Now everything that I've seen about doing glow plugs basically says just don't ever do glow plugs because they can be an absolute nightmare to get out. I think some people have had problems apparently taking glow plugs out. If you're not careful, they can snap, and obviously you're snapping them off basically in the head, and then you're into a whole other world there. I'm going to do them anyway. I have bought some new Bosch ones. They don't look new, they look a bit battered, but they are new, and so I'm going to fit them in. So best practice, you know, reading forums online, I don't know how much best practice that ever is, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the engine. I'm going to bring it right up to temperature, and then when it's up to temperature, I'm going to spray a load of penetrant on the glow plugs. And I've actually been spraying penetrant on the glow plugs for kind of like the last few weeks at this point, just every now and then when I remember, just to help ease extraction. But I'm going to get them hot, get the engine hot, nice and warm, so things, you know, they expand. I'm going to spray some more penetrant in there, and then when the engine's warm, obviously turn it off. I'm not a complete moron. Then I'm going to try and get them out. Okay, so the engine is now up to temperature. Now, you know, which means it's obviously way too hot, and every time I touch it I burn myself, which is exactly what you want. Now, one of the tips that I've read on taking these things out is to actually use a torque wrench in reverse, so that you don't kind of, you know, jam on the glow plugs too hard. So what I've done is I've set the torque wrench to 18 Newton meters, which is the tightening torque, and then hopefully that means that I'm not going to apply too much force, but let's see how that works out. Please don't snap, please don't snap, please don't snap. Ugh. That's the torque wrench just torquing out instantly. Oh no, there we go. Oh, first one is out. Oh, what a relief. There we go. That is the first glow plug, and if you've never seen a glow plug before, that's what they look like. And that has got a whole load of junk on it. I did clean down in the holes before I did this to make sure that nothing fell into the engine, but that is that's got a lot of crud on it. Right, that's all the glow plugs changed. There was absolutely no drama, to be quite honest with you. They all came out and then went back in really quite nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flush the engine out before doing an oil change. I've got this liquid moly stuff. This had just great reviews on Amazon. That's the only reason that I chose this particular engine flush. And so all you do really is, I think you just pour this, the engine's up to temperature, so you just pour the can into here, and then it says let the car idle for 10 to 15 minutes. We'll do 15 minutes because this engine has got a lot of sludge in it, lots of deposits and stuff, so I want to get all of that out because it doesn't look like this oil was actually changed for quite a long time. And you know, if you look around on the internet as well, there's quite a lot of people that say you shouldn't do you shouldn't flush the engine, and the reason that they say that is because apparently a load of the sludge in the engine can kind of like plug up holes and seals. That's what actually stops oil coming out of the engine, and if you then flush it out, you know, it pulls all that sludge out and then you get like oil leaks and stuff. So people say, well, just don't do an engine flush, but to me I'm just thinking, well, I think I'd want to know if my engine is basically being held together by sludge and I've got some kind of like horrible oil leak. I'd rather actually get the sludge out and then try to fix the leak. I don't know, call me mental, but it feels wrong. There's like no viscosity to this whatsoever. Okay, that's all sorted. And I know what you're thinking now. Is he about to drain oil into a cake box? Yep. I've been unscrewed. Oh, well, that's not hot. Ouch. Right, so there's no metal on the end of the thing, which I suppose is a good sign. And it's going to be pouring out like that, isn't it? Because I put in the engine flush, so there's not much viscosity. It's going to have lowered the viscosity. So this oil filter looks like it's Definitely seen better days. So I've gone with Petronas Cintium 5000 DM. I mean, these are all just words and numbers to me. It is 5W30 though, which is what I believe you're supposed to put in this. Absolutely perfect. You're probably not going to be able to tell this, but I can certainly tell you right now that it sounds a lot nicer. It's actually a little bit quieter, and it's less, sounds silly, but like mechanical. It just sounds smoother. Not too bad. Alright, so that is the oil all done. And I skipped right ahead actually. And I've actually now fitted the front bumper back on. And I'm quite happy with it, to be honest, how, you know, everything lines up. It could be better. You know, there are still gammy things like, you know, this seal here on the headlight that's, you know, gonna have to sort that, probably just buy second-hand headlights. Anyway, all I've got to do really is put that wheel on. This wheel is on, the wheel arch liners are all back in, and just get this thing on the ground. I also dumped a bottle of this Wins Extreme Diesel System Clean into the old fuel tank there. Hopefully this will do something, maybe clean the injectors out a little bit. I'm very glad to have gotten to this stage. It has felt like an eternity. I mean, it has been an eternity to me. It's been a few minutes for you. There she is, ladies and gents, the majestic beast. My lovely Claudia is back on the floor. Okay, so it's time to take her for her MOT test. This is actually the maiden voyage really since I've had her. Because she's not road legal, this is the first test drive is on the way to the MOT station, funnily enough, so she moves, right? The brakes, yeah, they work. Okay, and she's actually, she has got a little bit of poke, to be honest. Feels like the engine is back to health. Now, what am I expecting this car to pass her test? No, not really. I've not done any of these projects yet, and they've passed first time. It just hasn't happened. Uh-oh, come back. Oh no, my mount's come off. Yeah, it just hasn't happened yet. I think there's going to be some slight. It's a roundabout. That was my missus, by the way. In case you thought I was just shouting at a randomer, she was giving it back. So I think where this car might fall short is some of the bushes on the suspension do look a little sus. There's no creaks. I can't feel. There's no creaks. There's no like clanging or anything from the suspension. She's very floaty actually. She's quite boat-like. Yeah, she's very smooth actually. Yeah, not too shabby. Okay, that's Claudia in the test centre there. So I use these guys, Chelma Auto Repair Service. They're top guys, they are in there. Also, while I'm up here, there's a garage over here called Torque Monkey. They do all sorts of stuff to do with Mini R53s. And I just want to give those guys a shout out because I actually took my personal daily driver to them the other day, and you know when someone's just really sound? Those guys are really sound, did a good job, so I just want to give them a shout out. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I guess it didn't pass then. And you would be correct. We stayed true to form in making sure that none of my projects pass its inspection first time. Now, to be fair, unbelievably, I can't quite believe it, this car actually only failed on one thing on the whole car. The near side flexi hose. So this hose here, that's actually the new one that I've just fitted. So this is the one that I pulled off, and it's so slight, I never would have caught it ever, but you can see there that rubber has just started to perish. If I bend it back, just started to perish. That is classed as a major defect and is a failure on the test. Now, if you look at the other end of this, you can see now where I have just taken a grinder to it. And the reason I've taken a grinder to it is because it was all just completely seized up. It was utterly corroded and I couldn't get the nut off at all. So I've actually got the nut here. That's the there's the nut that was on it, and it was corroded, you know, and round before I even got my inexperienced little mitts on it. And this was actually completely corroded to, oh, I've got it here, it's actually corroded to the old hose. So I had to cut it off, and now this is the actual metal brake pipe that runs from here, and then it goes up into the ABS unit up there. Now obviously you can already see now what I've had to do. I've had to fashion my own new brake line out of copper, which I didn't really want to have to do because these are all steel lines and they're coated with plastic. But it just so happens that I had a load of fittings and I had the copper hose and a flare tool already in stock, so to speak. So I've just done it out of that, and so I flared both ends of the pipe. I used this, I got the length off of this just with a bit of string, and put a brand new flexi on in there. And yeah, I bent it on the car as well, so I just kind of bent it with my hands, because I've done this now. It doesn't really faze me anymore, these brake lines, because if you saw me doing a mini project, I had to bend new steel lines on, you know, the whole length of the car, and it was quite a job, but it's really got me used to and confident, you know, bending and creating brake pipes. And so now all I have to do is put the wheel arch liner back in and take it for a retest and see if she passes. Take two. Ladies and gentlemen, it is official. Claudia passed her MOT. She is now officially road legal. After what feels like an absolute eternity, much money spent, many grazed knuckles, we got there in the end. Please do consider subscribing if you've enjoyed this video, and if you want to go back and watch the first video in the series of this car, then just click right here. See you in the next one.